Olá, sejam bem-vindos a mais um IBGC Conecta, onde discutimos hoje Cyber Trends for Board Members. Eu sou Roberto Lamb, professor de finanças, membro do IBGC, conselheiro, e irei moderar, assim como participar do Conecta de hoje, junto com o Marco Faldini, parceiro estratégico da IBI-Tech, e nós vamos falar sobre Cyber Trends for Board Members e teremos a companhia da Etti Berger, diretora executiva e fundadora da TripleP, empresa israelense de consultoria e treinamento em cibersegurança. Nossas intervenções serão em português e inglês. As intervenções em inglês nós procuraremos fazer uma breve tradução. Participe da discussão enviando as suas perguntas pelo chat do YouTube e não deixe de preencher a pesquisa de satisfação disponível no descritivo do evento. Aproveite também para se inscrever neste canal e ser notificado das próximas transmissões. O Conecta vai ao ar semanalmente. Marco Faldini, the floor is up to you.
Thanks, Roberto. Bom dia a todos. Boker Tov, Etti. É um prazer estar aqui falando com o IBGC mais uma vez. Estou falando direto de Tel Aviv, em Israel. Sou brasileiro, como vocês podem ver. A IBI, nós temos uma consultoria aqui e nós fazemos conexão entre a high-tech, o ecossistema de inovação de high-tech israelense e o Brasil. Nós tivemos o prazer de receber o professor Roberto e muitos outros membros do IBGC aqui na jornada técnica que comemorou 10 anos de viagens do IBGC. Queria agradecer ao IBGC pelo convite, é um prazer estar aqui e hoje nós vamos falar de Cyber Trends. Eu imigrei para Israel com família e tudo, então moro aqui, mas sou paulista. E agora a gente faz esse trabalho de conexão entre as oportunidades de tecnologia israelense e o Brasil. So I'm going to switch to English. Etti, thanks very much to be here with us today. It's a pleasure. I think it's the second or third time that you're going to talk with our fellow friends from Brazil, from IBGC. The session today is going to be very interactive, so I'm going to make some questions for you, Roberto. I'm going to make some questions for you, Etti, and I want you to respond. And at the end, we will have our friends from Brazil sending questions as well. Pessoal do Brasil, vocês podem mandar perguntas em português, que nós vamos traduzir aqui, e a Etti e o Roberto, se for o caso, vão responder. Em inglês, ela, em português, ele. Mas primeira pergunta para a Etti, por que Israel é tão forte em cybersecurity? Etti, can you explain us a bit why Israel has been so famous and a leading player in the cybersecurity scenario, please?
Yes, definitely. But first of all, thank you for having me and good morning to all of you. It's my pleasure to be part of this session. And regarding your question, Mario, as you know, Israel is a small country, that enemy is just around us, and we need to defend ourselves. And mostly we see that the wars, or actually the cyber area, will be the major future war from our perspective. And as for that, unfortunately, we need to also be prepared for such threats. And most of us need to serve in the IDF, in the Israeli Defense Forces. And a lot of the technology and innovation are coming from this part, are coming from the IDF, are coming from defense position that Israel is placing. And based on that, we have also the innovation coming from the army to the private sector, to the companies, organization, and we keep developing it and keep focusing on this innovation. And as for that, we actually became a really major player in this area.
Okay, thanks. I understand that you've been in the IDF with the with the cybersecurity problems as well, right?
Yes, that's correct. No matter whether you are a woman or a man, you have to serve between the age of 18 to 20 or 21, depends on your gender, in the army. And yes, I also was part of the Israeli defense in the cyber area.
Okay, okay. Roberto, I have seen the survey from the GNDI, the Global Network of Director Institute, which IBGC is a part in Brazil. And in on the most recent survey, they asked several people all over the world what was going to be after the pandemic, what is the new scenario. And 60% of the respondents, the most of them, responded that incorporating a new set of risks into a broader scenario planning is something very important. Ou seja, na pesquisa que teve do GNDI, a resposta mais escolhida sobre o que vai acontecer nos conselhos após a pandemia é que o assessment, a verificação de riscos tem que ser maior. Isso que foi respondido pelos respondentes. Roberto, you have been involved in board since a very long time. How do you feel the board's general risk assessment in today's world, and more specifically into the cyber lately? So, como que você vê a verificação de risco nos conselhos hoje, já que você trabalha tanto tempo nessa área?
Well, I have taken notice, Etti, and I will reply, Mark, with my A1 and A2 notes. Bem, a observação é a seguinte: de fato, os conselhos eles estão envolvidos em riscos diariamente, né, em todas as suas reuniões. Principalmente agora na pandemia, você tem riscos relativos à sobrevivência da empresa, você tem riscos relativos ao caixa, né? Você, numa situação, está perguntando sobre a burn rate, a taxa de queima da caixa, né? Você está preocupado com a perda de clientes, a perda de fornecedores, né? Você está preocupado se vai mudar o comportamento do consumidor do seu produto, se você vai ter fornecedor, né? Então, eu diria o seguinte, que mesmo que de uma forma não estruturada como gestão de riscos, os conselhos estão diariamente fazendo gestão de riscos. Me parece que sim, que essa tendência de, após a pandemia, pensar mais em ESG, ela é adequada. Agora, o que ocorre é que, no que diz respeito à gestão de riscos, os cibernéticos, né, cyber risks, não está pressionando tanto o conselho quanto a pandemia e a perda de clientes. Então, o item fica, digamos, mais para depois, é importante, ele é tratado pela área de TI, pelo gerente de TI, não é? E exatamente hoje a gente vai mostrar que esse é um assunto que não é de TI, é um assunto da alta administração e do conselho.
Okay. So Etti, Roberto mainly said that this is still something related to the technological guys and not up in the upper management. In your field of experience, how do you see the upper management recently looking into these kind of risks, the cyber risks?
First of all, from my perspective, the management currently, or the C-level and directors now, should be and are more involved in the cybersecurity risks and threats that are actually part of on a daily basis in the organization, mostly because of the trends of the threats that are being occur for the organization, and second, because of the privacy regulation and other type of regulations that are needed to be implemented in the organization. And from my perspective, each one of the management member should know and be committed to implement a strategic plan for cybersecurity, to know the new threats, to adjust the threats and the risk according to what we have, to the reality that we are handling, like now the epidemic time, like COVID-19, which modify the way we handle our daily work. And so we need to be focused and understand the threats, be aware of the regulations that are part of the things that we need to stand behind, and know the current risks and the main cyber attacks that are coming, and be more involved, understand the language, understand the terms, understand how to handle and how to build a strategic that is both combine the business side and the technology side, and help the organization stand behind those risks.
Okay, thanks. That's definitely a trend that we're seeing. The same survey that I was talking about also asked what could change inside the boards, and global-wise, 70% said that to incorporate expert risks on whatever risk there is into the boardmanship is something that should happen. But the Brazilian section, the IBGC responders, they actually said something different. They said that ESG, environment, social, and governance with sustainability should be, for 85% of them, should be the first change that the boards should have. So, Roberto, já que a resposta dos brasileiros perante a pesquisa do GNDI foi um pouco diferente da resposta global, que no global falou tem que trazer experts para dentro do conselho, e no Brasil a resposta foi nós temos que olhar mais para ESG. Como você vê os riscos cibernéticos acontecendo nas empresas hoje brasileiras? Se está acontecendo mais, se está acontecendo menos, o que você enxerga hoje na situação atual? Hein?
Bem, eu diria que, voltando à pesquisa, going back to the research, se nós pensarmos em ESG, provavelmente cyber está dentro da sustentabilidade. Talvez não tenhamos pensado que a sustentabilidade engloba, sim, cyber, porque cyber coloca em risco a continuidade da empresa. E sustentabilidade não é só sustentabilidade ambiental ou social, mas é a sustentabilidade do negócio no longo prazo. Então, aquelas empresas que não despertaram ainda para a necessidade de cyber, elas estão deixando de olhar para um lado importante da sustentabilidade. Não é? Sobre as empresas brasileiras atacadas, não é? Se nós olharmos qualquer browser aí, qualquer internet, procurando por cyberataques, a gente vai ter uma lista enorme, né? Toda hora a gente está vendo novos ataques. O que se observa, de um modo geral, é que as empresas que parecem ter sido o maior alvo ultimamente são as utilities, né? As empresas concessionárias de energia elétrica, em primeiro lugar, e concessionárias em geral, porque provavelmente os hackers os consideram um serviço crítico e essencial, que tem que ser restabelecido imediatamente, então há mais propensão em pagar resgate. E, por outro lado, essas empresas também detêm um imenso banco de dados de clientes, né? que podem ser capturados e vazados, né? E elas também costumam ter bastante caixa, mas não são só essas empresas. Uma breve pesquisa na internet vai nos mostrar um grande número de outros setores sendo atacados também. O que ocorre é que as empresas, de um modo geral, elas procurarão não divulgar que foram atacadas. E as notícias que a gente vê em jornais geralmente dizem de empresa de companhias listadas, companhias com ações na bolsa. E essas têm algumas obrigações de divulgação e são obrigadas a divulgar que sofreram um ataque que pode trazer impacto, enfim, não é? Já aquelas que não são listadas, já é menos frequente a notícia, mas o número pode ser bem maior. Eu não pretendo falar em nomes, porque a gente tem que preservar o nome das empresas.
Está correto. Etti, thanks, Roberto. Professor Lamb was saying about that what is being published, it's mainly regarding listed companies because they have obligation to disclose the information. But there are several other companies that are being hacked or being attacked by ransomware or other kind of problems to steal customer information or even to stop business, or even just like we've seen here in the region, like terrorist people trying to poison water. So he was saying that many utilities like power companies and water companies are being hammered on this kind of stuff. But I think it's wider, right? It's happening all over. I think that we are in a world that we have many young people that are much more tech savvy than the board members, let's say like this. So every single 10-year-old right now have his own iPhone or Android or something. With 15, he's already being able to program and to do stuff. With 20, he's able to do fun stuff for him, which he doesn't understand that it's fun for the others. And also we have the pandemic where everybody is at home, everyone has to bring their own device, everybody's in home office. So this also brings problems. How do you see these trends impacting the companies that your company TripleP advise?
Okay, so everything that you mentioned is correct, and I really would like to expand it a little bit. I know, and Professor Lamb is definitely right regarding the critical infrastructure that they are the main focus for terrorists or activists or organizations that would like to hurt the country and to pose huge damage to the country. But besides of that, we have other stuff that need to be focused on because, as you said, things are getting easier for people to do games which hurt the companies. Like currently, we have systems that called cybercrime, for example, cybercrime as a service, which each young person that even do not know how to code or to write any kind of malware or create an infrastructure for a cyber attack could rent or buy a predefined or something that he could rent and use in order to hack everything that he would like to hack into it or to hurt companies. Ransomware are definitely a huge threat for the organization. Together with that, we have all the social media, which is a very dangerous stuff in terms of privacy and getting personal information. We have the deep fake technology and the AI technology, which together present us with a huge new trend in cyber attacks. And we also see that we are very afraid from those two technologies in terms of elections, in terms of fake news, in terms of everything that could affect the crowd, by hearing Prime Minister saying stuff that he's not really saying or thinking, but because of using those two technologies, big deep fake and AI, we can see them happening to our country or the organization. So our goal in TripleP is to light those new trends. And in a few minutes, I will show in a short slide the main threats that we are handling throughout 2021 and 22. And our goal as a company is to show those threats, emphasize the new threats, and actually train the people, which is part of the organization, how to get familiar with those threats, how to recognize the risks, how to forensic everything, and how to become a really experienced and professional person in terms of incident response, risk management, and so on.
Ok. Pessoal, vou explicar uma coisa que ela contou aqui, que eu acho que muita gente não conhece a terminologia. Eu estava perguntando para ela como que eram os riscos que estavam acontecendo em geral, além do que o professor Lamb falou de ataque de ransomware, que é aquele que ele trava o sistema e você tem que pagar um resgate para soltar, além do hacker entrar e roubar dados. Ela estava falando de social media, que a gente, quase todos nós usamos. E existem duas tecnologias novas de social media que criam fake news muito facilmente, que podem gerar complicações, que é o chamado deepfake e AI, que é a inteligência artificial. O que é o deepfake? É um sistema que muda, por exemplo, eu estou falando com vocês aqui, está aparecendo a minha cara, e eles botam uma outra cara aqui e é absolutamente perfeito. E você tem visto isso em vários vídeos, que você fala assim, como é possível que aquela pessoa falou isso? E parece a pessoa de verdade e é outra, porque essa é a tecnologia de deepfake, ou seja, de fazer uma imagem aparecer com a cara da outra e falar com a voz da pessoa original. Okay, Etti, so I'm going to invite you, please, now to show some of your slides, and I want you to answer some of the questions that I'm going to make to you right now. So, can you show us some examples of threats or attacks that people should know? What are the risks associated with those type of risks and incidents? Which are the basic terms that are all over right now, like this that we just talked about, deepfake and AI, and the most important one for this audience of ours today, as a board member, como membro do conselho, how do I choose a partner if there's so many, if everyone seems to be selling you the service that will definitely respond the threat? Como é que a gente escolhe um provedor que vai nos ajudar? Porque tem tantos vendors no mercado que a gente às vezes não sabe. So please, Etti.
Yes, I just, if it's possible, I want to add one more thing that I forgot to mention regarding the new threats. And I think that is really important to emphasize in terms of management and board members, is regarding the innovative technology of smart cities and automated cars. I think that this will take a huge part in the next few years, and will also attempt, or will get attempted by hackers to deal with it. And we can see things that are going, and threats that are going to affect those areas. So this is something that is really important also to know this. I will try to, I will jump a little bit, because part of the things we already discussed in our session. Okay, and now, of course, you will get the slides after the conversation. You can share it with everyone which would like to. Thanks. But as you can see, if we're looking at cybercrimes in 2021, we can see that there were, during 2020, the main stuff were data breach. This is something that happened in a huge amount of data that was breached and been recognized as a cybercrime in those companies. Here are 3 examples of the biggest data breach of all time. The first one is in 2013 in Yahoo. We're talking about 3 billion accounts which was hacked. And on 2020, we're talking about Cam4 that suffered from an attack which will cause almost 11 billion accounts which were hacked and theft. And of course, this is the reason that privacy regulation are being impact the organization more and more during those current months and years. Also, if we're talking about damages, you can see here some numbers regarding the damages. One is based on ransomware attack. The second is based on other attacks. We see that it's causing a lot of money. And we as management need to focus not only on the business side, but on the cybersecurity side also. We need to pay attention to create a budget that is dedicated to the cybersecurity. And we see that it's going to cause us, if we will not be ready for that, it will cause us a huge harm, both in money terms and second in reputation and customers that will leave us. Also, another thing that we need to be focused as manager is to pay attention that the threats are not only external threats from terrorists or external hackers, but also from inside. Also, our employees, internal employees are being also should treat as a threat, not because all of them are doing it out of I don't know, range or something like we needed to, in terms of revenge or everything, but also innocent activities might cause damages. So we need to train our employees, train the staff, give them awareness training on the dangerous things that they might be caused by our behavior. And if we are looking at threats that we need to be focused on 2021, and of course, based on the COVID-19 epidemic, we need to see that data breaches are going to be a major risk. Working from home, distributed networking, phishing, social media, social engineering are going to be the main threats in the coming year. And do you want me to also mention our services in terms of these threats, Marco?
In a sec.
Okay. So basically, this is the major things that need to be focused on 2021, for our opinion.
Okay. So I am receiving some questions and some comments over here. And before you can show the type of business that you do, I'm gonna say some comments that I received from the audience. So Vladimir Barcel is saying that that we're going to have the cyber risk are going to get problem with data regulations, the LGPD and compliance, and that's a big risk. What you can say about data breach and LGPD, if you know something about the Brazilian law?
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the Brazilian law, and I have to say that it's very, very blessed step that we are doing in order to keep the privacy issue in the country. And we need to focus on the data that we are collecting. When I'm saying we, I'm talking about organization and companies. We need to focus on the data that we are collecting. We need to understand which type of data, whether it's a sensitive data or personal data or business data. We need to know where the data is being stored, how to save it, how to control the security controls on this data, and to prepare ourselves to a situation of data breaches, how to be prepared for them in advance, how to implement the needed procedures and policy in order to keep them as much as possible.
Okay.
Marco, eu gostaria de acrescentar ao comentário
Por favor.
da Etti, que a existência da LGPD aqui no Brasil, ela traz um risco enorme adicional, porque você não só pode sofrer um ataque, um cyberataque, vazar dados, ter perdas financeiras, ter perda de reputação, mas você ainda pode ser multado pela agência e você pode ser processado pelos clientes ou por pessoas que tiveram seus dados vazados. Então, a LGPD traz um risco muito maior, muito maior.
Okay. Okay. I have another comment over here. Ricardo Lemos is talking also about the question regarding the home office and the risks associated with that. How riskier we are right now because of that, Etti?
Very risky, because there is no like a control system that monitor all the computers and the network that is being worked through while we are at home. There is no centralized way to control and to manage all this stuff. There might be interfering between the personal area where we work and do our personal stuff on the same computer that we're working in terms of working hours. This is something that is very difficult to handle, very difficult to manage, and this might cause us huge breaches and huge risks as a company. We need to be aware of that. We need to train. We need to be prepared with the right security controls and the right management in terms of working distributed option. And this is something that really should be on our daily worries in our companies.
Também queria acrescentar aqui, Marco,
por favor.
Também tenho a acrescentar que o que eu observo nas empresas é que um certo, digamos assim, falso sentimento de segurança, porque o pessoal diz, nossos colaboradores trabalham através de VPN, Virtual Private Network, mas esquecem de colocar um double checking. Nós temos ouvido relatos de ataques de ransomware penetrados através de VPN. E mais, as empresas se protegem com senhas de cofre, e esquecem da engenharia social. Então, há perfis sendo roubados, entrada através de VPN, com acesso à senha de cofres e autoatribuição de senhas.
Etti, this was a very scary answer from Roberto, that he was saying that we have many companies that put their employees to working from home. Some of them do have their own devices, some of them have the company's devices, and even if they use the VPN, sometimes they don't have a double security. And even like that, so even with the VPN, there are companies that are being hacked because on the social part, on the pilot of the computer back in home, there's no knowledge, there's no assessment of this kind of risk. So can you do a comment on that?
Yes, first of all, I totally agree.
Excuse me, I was saying that through social engineering, the hacker steals the credentials and goes inside the VPN and goes to the safe passwords and attacks any critical data, any critical system.
I totally agree with you. This is why we are thinking in our company, we're thinking that each one of the organization should take main or actually be focused on 6 main steps in order to decrease the percentage of being hacked based on what Roberto just said. We're thinking that the first step is to map all the assets, the crown jewels, the data, the main assets in the organization, know where they are, how to access them. Second, to understand what are the main risks. After that, talking about the security controls that are in place and what is missing, to do some kind of a gap analysis and do a training, how to increase the reasonable defense to the organization, whether we are facing the COVID-19 and working for home status, or whether we are working on an unusual basis from the office. These are the steps that every organization should take, along with procedures, very readable procedures and policies, which are being acceptable and implemented on the organization, and by that decrease the option of being attacked and the option to lose in this battle.
Etti, I have another question that will come back to your presentation. So one of our guys that is looking at us right now is Fernando Ferreira, and he's saying that is still very hard to the main board to get information about cyber trust until there's a hack or until there's something that really explodes, let's say like this. And that sometimes on the audit committee, these are better addressed. And he's also saying that it's very hard to find people that understand and that can report to this kind of meetings that usually talks about, as Professor Roberto said, of the future sustainability of the company. So I understand that part of your job is to teach people how to address this kind of threats. So what is exactly that you as an organization, and it's not exactly like a solution provider, what is that you do? What is your job over there in TripleP?
Can I now go back to share a screen with the?
Yeah, you can share.
Okay, I just want to show that it will be easier to see what I mean. Okay, what we are doing, like you said, we are not a product company. We are not a solution company. From our perspective, we are looking at people that are the most valuable asset in the organization. And while looking at people as the most valuable assets, we would like to train the people in the organization to be more professional. And we're beginning in the executives level because they need a specific training to understand the risks, to understand the threats, to understand the language, they understand everything that they need in a high level and in terms of strategy. And we are also train people in a lower level or more professional or hands-on level, like the incident response team, the forensic team, red team, analysts, and so on. We also helping customers to write the needed procedures and methodology, how to prepare themselves for threats and risks, how to deal with the regulation, the local one and the external one which affect us, help customer to analyze the risk assessment and the mapping, and so on. This is something that we are doing in our company. And like I said, regarding the people, we see that no matter how technology we are going to implement, at the end, people who are the real asset. And this is why we prefer to do the training and make them further professional. Here is just in a nutshell, the courses and the trainings that we are providing. And we believe that with the right professional hands-on experience, the organization will be well prepared to deal with the threats and risks.
Actually, the conversation over here, you can shut your slides now, Etti, thanks. Okay. Actually, the conversation here exactly began when Professor Lamb asked us if we can help to build up maybe a course or some documentation to help IBGC members. So that was exactly the message when we start preparing this seminar today. We have some other questions.
Marco, eu também gostaria de fazer uma colocação. Excuse me, Etti. A gente tem duas formas de enxergar a questão. Por um lado, é a tendência de buscar especialistas no conselho, especialistas nos comitês. As minhas conversas e indagações e investigações com conselhos mostram que talvez essa não seja exatamente o caminho adequado. O que se observa é que os conselhos estão muito afastados disso. Os conselhos não tratam do tema. E aí eu gostaria de chamar a atenção para um papel fundamental do chairman of the board, do presidente do conselho. Ele deve se interessar em colocar isto na agenda. Esta é uma questão estratégica e de sustentabilidade da empresa, de continuidade do negócio. Então, a organização e a disciplina do presidente do conselho em trazer esses temas que ameaçam a continuidade, a sustentabilidade das empresas, é um dever fundamental, é um dever de ofício, inclusive. Os conselheiros, de um modo geral, com quem eu tenho conversado, eles se sentem despreparados, não conhecem o assunto, sentem-se angustiados. Aqueles que despertaram com o assunto sentem-se angustiados. E os outros dizem, não tratamos disso, o assunto não veio à discussão. E alguns conselheiros dizem que o assunto simplesmente não é tratado no conselho. Não é? Então, partindo do princípio que nós estamos diante de um problema de sustentabilidade, de continuidade dos negócios, esse assunto tem que estar organizado na agenda do conselho. Isto não é um assunto da área de TI. É um assunto da alta administração e do conselho. Então, por simples olhar do que acontece no mundo, os conselhos têm que colocar esse tema e discutir. E chamar alguém que conhece, chamar a sua auditoria para falar sobre o assunto. Há N empresas aí que podem falar, conversar. Inicia-se com uma conversa. O importante é criar a agenda e trazer a cultura.
I totally agree with you, Roberto. Etti, he was saying that cyber is usually not discussed on the board. On the boards. Over the boards, usually it's not, and it has to be with the chairman of the board to pick this subject and bring it to the discussions over there. And I think, as I am seeing the trends and with all the talks that we've been having, I see that it's, besides being a sustainability issue, sometimes it's not a question of if it will happen, but when it will happen. and it's very complicated. And ourselves as regular people, we sometimes just forget about it. We post things, we say things. I know that your computer, for instance, doesn't have any video camera. You're using another one because you're afraid that everyone is looking at what is going on. So it's really something that it's still not in the board agenda, but it should be. How do you think, one of the questions that we received is from Eduardo. He's asking, how do you implement a strategy, a governance strategy for security information, for data security, this kind of stuff?
First of all, I would like to say that I really agree with what Professor Roberto said. And what I'm telling the customers that I'm working with is always be paranoid, because like you said, it's not if I'm being attacked, but when it happened to me. And also the other stuff that I usually working on is saying that you don't know about the things you don't know yet, because you know the assets currently, the current assets that you are aware of are the assets that you are going to defend, but there might be assets that you are not aware of, like hardware that are not connected to the network and could be a vulnerability point. There is a person that is not familiar with the policies and the procedures that are going to be the weakest link. And this is why, like I mentioned, our strategy is to work through the main 6 steps, how to become aware of the assets, the data that we store, where it is located, how to implement the security controls, how to do the right training for the organization from the top to the bottom, how to create an incident response and a business continuity plan, how to make the right procedures, and how to be prepared to the main risks that could threat our organization. And Roberto, I'm absolutely agree with what you said.
Professor Lamb, tem mais alguma pergunta para a Etti sua, do seu lado? Any other question on your side? I have 2 or 3 more from the audience.
Let's the audience have the preference.
Okay. So I have a question from Rafael Vicini. How effective goals related to business certifications for the management, like the ISO 27001 and 27701, for example, can be used toward reducing cyber threats and spreading benchmarks of good practices?
The question is for me?
Yes, for you.
Okay. So both of them are very important certifications. The 27001 is a information security certificate that will help us to implement the right security controls to our organization, together with risk assessment and penetration testing. And the second, the 27701, is a new certification that will help us implement all the needed security controls in terms of privacy, how to deal with privacy issue. Both of them can help organization to comply or to be ready to the LGPD privacy regulation and to the needed security controls that are needed to be implemented in the organization.
Okay, I have 2 more questions, Etti, if you still have time and you're still eager to respond. So many questions coming in. Thanks, everyone.
Of course.
So Mr. Borocci, Eduardo Borocci is asking, how many companies have a chief information security officer on side of a CTO or on side of CIO? As you may know, is that many? Are the minority, medium? How do you see the appearance or the growth of the position of the existing position of the Chief Information Security Officer?
First of all, we see more and more companies that are separate the role of the IT manager to both, to one, it will be the IT that is going to be responsible to the infrastructure, and another one will handle the security issues. It's still not enough, it's still minority, but we see it growing during the last years. And also we need to pay attention to a new role that should be part of the organization, which called DPO, a data privacy officer, that also is a separate role from the CISO, from the Chief Information Security Officer, and he will be responsible under the CEO, under the management. He will be the representative to all the privacy issue. He should not be under the CISO or under the IT manager, but under the CEO, and which will be responsible to implement the right controls and agreements that relate to the privacy issues. And this is something very new, and I don't see it happened in many organizations, and this is something that we need to be prepared to.
Eu perguntei do CISO, né, do cara específico sobre ataques, mas ela trouxe uma nova posição, que é o cara do Data Privacy, por causa de LGPD e GDPR na Europa, que é uma questão muito delicada e, como o professor Lamb comentou, tem os riscos de processos e complicações piores. I have another question here, Etti, from Antonio Biso. How important is a country cyber infrastructure and regulation to pave the ground for the private sector work on their own cyber defense? And I think you should answer a bit about what is the situation here in Israel.
Okay. I think it's a very, very important one, because there needs to be some guidance for the private sector, for the business sector, that's coming from the government, from the critical infrastructure. And by understanding and the effects of cyber risk and cyber attacks on the infrastructure, on the critical infrastructure, it will help the country to achieve some kind of a strategy that will be implemented to the to the organization in the country. Here in Israel, we have also something that it's called, I don't know how to translate it. Marco, please help me. מערך הסייבר הלאומי.
The Cyber Directorate?
If you say so, yes. רשות הסייבר or מערך הסייבר, this is something that is an institution that is in country level under the Prime Minister. And he's the guide.
In English, it's called the Cyber Directorate.
Okay, thank you very much. And this is the institution that help organization to understand the right methodology, how to be prepared to cyber attacks, what are the main risks, and how to deal with them. And I think that each country should have something like that. And it's really important that the things that coming from the critical infrastructure will lead to implementation and guidance to the private sector and to enterprises and organizations inside the country.
Aqui no Brasil, Marco, nós temos duas coisas. Primeiro, o DPO existe aqui, ele é até obrigatório pela LGPD. Todas as empresas de um certo nível, certo porte, precisam ter uma pessoa encarregada da LGPD. Aliás, o DPO. E quanto à infraestrutura, nós aqui também temos as Forças Armadas, o CD Cyber, do Comando Militar do Planalto, aliás, do Exército, que organiza essas coisas. Nós temos aqui considerados 5 infraestruturas críticas, que é energia elétrica, água, logística e transportes, telecomunicações e sistema financeiro, né? Então, essas aqui são as infraestruturas críticas que são acompanhadas pela inteligência do Exército.
Eu não sabia do DPO que já era obrigatório para algum nível.
É obrigatório, sim. A LGPD é obrigatório.
Ok. Essa história que ela falou do Cyber Directorate aqui, todo ano tem um evento aqui em Israel, em Tel Aviv, que quem abre é o primeiro-ministro. Realmente é assunto de Estado. E é uma reunião aberta para o público. Qualquer um pode ir lá, óbvio, tem segurança, eles te fazem raio-x de cima a baixo, mas qualquer um pode ir. E o primeiro-ministro é quem abre a reunião do Cyber Director e é aberto para todo o público. Okay, guys, I think we are reaching our end of the day, the seminar, the presentation. Etti, toda rabá. Muito obrigado.
Thank you all. It was very exciting.
Pelo seu tempo. Obrigado por estar aqui com a gente. So, thank you very much, Etti. Foi um prazer, pessoal. Muito obrigado. So, I'll invite each one of you to say your final remarks. Até a próxima. Etti.
Bem,
thank you.
de minha parte...
It was a big pleasure. Sorry, go ahead, Professor Lamb.
Thank you, Etti. IBGC also thanks you. And gostaria de agradecer a todos os que participaram, que tiveram interesse no tema. Convidamos também para o próximo IBGC Conecta, no dia 2 de março, às 17 horas, com o tema Compliance em Empresas de Capital Fechado, Panoramas e Desafios. Muito obrigado pela participação de todos.
I also would like to thank you all. Thank you, Professor Lamb. Thank you, Marco. It was a great pleasure. And if I learned something, it's obrigado. I hope that I said correctly. Thank you, and a wonderful day to all of you.
Bom dia a todos. Muito obrigado, pessoal. Obrigado, IBGC, pelo convite. Professor Roberto, até a próxima. Pessoal, até mais.